Now, I'm going to ask you something because it would be my pleasure to hear your response. I never had the chance to work with Michael Bennett, and I miss that terribly. Fran and I have been fortunate to work with some of the greats in the theater, living and unfortunately gone, but never Michael Bennett. What was that experience like?
Well, you know, Barry, I met Michael when I was 27 years old. Okay, I don't know.
That was
that
5 years ago?
Exactly. I mean, I was really a baby. I just started practicing law. And a great lawyer by the name of John Wharton, who founded the firm, introduced me to Michael because John was retired. And so, in a funny way, we grew up together early in his career. But one of the first things that I really worked with him from scratch was a chorus line. And Michael was, talk about passion. I mean, there isn't a word for what Michael was in terms of the theater. Every fiber of his body was about the theater and about dance and music and acting. That's all he lived for. And the minute I met him, and he was probably no farther away from me than you were, sitting in a room, you knew that this was someone you had to work with because he just filled the room with his enthusiasm, his ideas, his passion. And we clicked very early on. He was looking for someone who was more or less his age, because a lot of the lawyers at that time were much older. And we just started that journey. And he was not formally educated. He left high school at the age of 16 to go on the road in Europe, in West Side Story, with dancing. Yeah. And he was a jet, not a shark. He was a jet, with his longtime collaborator who worked with his whole career, Bob Avian.
Right.
And from then on, that's all Michael did was Broadway musicals. But at a very early age, he wanted to choreograph and direct. He was frustrated being a gypsy. And Michael, when he met you, if he liked you and wanted to work with you, he could sort of bore into your soul, right? He knew people, so even when he wasn't educated, he knew how to get to people. And people would kill for him. They would do anything they had to please Michael because they respected him so much. He was a tyrant in many ways in the rehearsal room because one of his theories, I think, was in order to get the very best from people, in many ways you had to really terrify them. I don't know whether that...
I worked with Jerome Robbins, so I know.
Well, how about that?
Talk about terrifying.
He was almost on the level, I think. And Michael, of course, trained under Jerry. You know,
Sure.
He got trained. And there's a true story, which everyone tells. The opening night of A Chorus Line, Sammy R. Williams, the actor who played in the original cast, Paul, who's the actor who, you know, is the gay young man who tells a story solo on the stage. He said, Michael said to him, right before he went out on stage, he said, Sammy, just remember tonight how much I hate you. I mean, just a terrible thing to say to an actor. And he said after that, he said, so you better cry. He wanted him to cry. It's unbelievable. You know, so Michael could be a tyrant, but that's really not who he was.
One of the great theater creators.
One of the kindest, most generous people ever to be in the theater, because as you know, he gave so much of his own money to the dancers. The first one to do that on a chorus line, which is still done today, and everybody read what happened in Hamilton. And he poured all these millions that he made on a chorus line. He bought 890 Broadway, a whole building, downtown factory, and devoted that to the theater. So he was incredibly generous. When Seesaw, the musical Seesaw, was floundering, and Joe Kipnis didn't have any money to keep it going, Michael, who was not a rich man at that time, it was before Chorus Line, he paid 2 weeks' salaries to the actors out of his own pocket. Now, you have worked with more directors than I can think of. How many directors do you know who would do that?
Fran, can we think of one?
The answer is no.
And I'm not saying they're cheap, but it's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.